Morning. It's Tuesday, day 7 of quarantine, so we've been home a week today. Yesterday was a busy day here in Ontario. I think yesterday I talked about in my video that our Premier, Doug Ford, has come down with kind of a lockdown for Ontario as of midnight tonight. We looked at the list of basically what's happening is they're shutting down any non-essential businesses, but we looked at the list and I mean the list is for those that are remaining open is still pretty large. So that's kind of the update, is we're just being kind of on lockdown and they just came out with the list. So I think for now, all we're doing is just hunkering down and keeping very isolated. We're not leaving our property. So I think what I'll do today is give you guys a full tour of the sheep barn, the finishing barn, and how that all works and how it was designed, and go from there. Welcome to my sheep farm. We have two right now. We have an old barn across the road that we renovated in 2011, 2012. And we will go over there after I give you the grand tour of this particular sheep shed. This one was built in October of 2013. It is a tarp style barn, which 6 months ago I'd say the best thing ever. And I will still say that, but we did have a little issue in December, and you can check out my old videos. I have a whole series on that catastrophe. But for the most part, this barn has been an absolute joy to work in. My sheep are healthy, and for me it's a joy to get up every morning and look forward to coming to the barn. And I guess the biggest reason is the natural light. For me, it feels like I'm outside, but I'm protected by a roof, which is good. So for any new sheep farmers or farmers that have been doing it for years and just wonder what we did, how we made our decision, and if I like it, then I guess this is more for you guys or for people just curious. Not a lot of people are involved in farming or have the ability to get to a farm to actually have a tour. So I just want to give you guys kind of an unfiltered, unedited, like I didn't clean my floors today. So just a real, true, authentic view of the sheep barn and all the equipment that I use to raise sheep. This is the barn. It is a bright span apex frame style. The length of the barn is 252 feet long total, and the width is 80 from wall to wall. The pens themselves start at the 192 foot mark from where the pens start to the very end wall, and there's 4 of those pens. So kind of what I do with all the pens for spacing is I find the most comfortable square footage for animals, whether they're rams or ewes or pregnant ewes, is no more than 35. Each of these linear pens can be divided into 4 sections based on a water bowl that I can split in half with a water gate. So what I have found just through experience and linear feet of feed space is not to push 35 ewes or rams per pen. Actually, rams probably a little less, maybe about 30. There's 29 in here right now, and they're just nicely, they nicely fit. Right now, currently, we're sitting at around 450 ewes, 450 to 460. So each pen, I don't like to push over about 100, in between 110 to 115 ewes a row to make that 450. However, when there's lambs in a pen, then of course those numbers are kind of out of whack a little bit. So I would strongly recommend, if you are building a barn, to no matter what they give you for numbers, really figure out how much square footage you need when you have lambs in your barn with your ewes, because that makes a huge difference on space. All right, feeders. Well, what can I say about these? These are real old school looking, and probably old school for, you know, someone from a dairy farm or a beef farm that might prefer to feed on a manger on the floor. And then they could use a pull behind TMR, put lots of feed in one TMR mix. I prefer these only because I'm a little bit lazy. And the good thing about this is I can feed once a day. I don't have to come back at 4 o'clock and clean up the hay that they can't reach. And you'll see in the other barn the difference between feeding in a bunk style like this and feeding on the floor. You do have to push in feed across the road, whereas here you don't have to. So this is called the J bunk. I'll put a link in the description as to where I got these, but it's called Stubby's Precast, and these are a precast cement bunk, and they are made specifically for sheep. That's why I like it. They're a little smaller than the cow ones. I think it's called J bunk because it kind of looks like a J, and yeah, they work really nice. These are in 8-foot sections. I did put dividers for doors a couple places down this middle alley and the side alleys, and I did that just for movement of sheep, because sometimes I need to get that back pen over to here and vice versa. I'm always moving sheep around. You can look at any of my old videos, you can see me always doing that. So it's just nice to have some access points that you don't have to move everybody out and move them all out, especially if there's lambs. I guess where we're here, we can talk about these gates. If I was making any suggestions to new sheep farmers, I would say try to figure out who sells gates that are both strong enough to handle the animals and the wear and tear, but light enough that you're not killing yourself moving them if you're always moving gates, which I am. Now these ones here, these permanent ones that I don't move very often, are made by Marweld, and most of the equipment I have is made by Marweld, and I will put a link to the description, a link to their company in the description as well. They're a Canadian company here in Ontario that do manufacture a lot of sheep and goat equipment. So I have typically bought in the past from them, but there's some other equipment. I know I bought some things that are made by the company Vino. I don't have any handling equipment. All I have is my hoof, my trim chute, which I will show you in the equipment part of this video. But yeah, these work really well. Each gate is a 12-foot section, so I have 16 12-foot sections all the way along this cement curb that we poured that can actually be taken out to make a flat floor if this did indeed ever get changed for a different usage. At every 12 feet, there's a T-post that has 4 attachments on it, so I can put gates going this way or I can put gates going this way. And they're just legged into the ground, and I notice one is actually out, so I have to get Mark to help me fix that eventually. I guess I should talk about the reason why we went with this structure, this bright span tarp style barn instead of an actual barn. And really the reason was for functionality. So if anything ever happened to me, we wanted the option of making this anything we wanted to be, whether it be storage, a commodity shed, a beef barn, anything, goat barn. I thought that's a joke. It was really just for a multi-use barn, and we're really glad we did it. And in saying that, we made everything removable. So the bunks you see, the cement curb you see, the cement curb is the only thing really that we put in that was a little more permanent, but it is a floating curb, so we can just come out and sledge it out. It's just sitting on top of the poured floor. So yes, underneath the pens is all concrete. We went with a flat concrete floor, and again, that's for future use options. So just giving that flexibility to be able to make this barn into whatever we wanted to, with a flat floor, open, tall ceiling, so you can stack things. So that's really why we went with this facility over a barn. I mean, I'm used to a barn. Would I have preferred a barn? Probably when we were researching, my heart was probably more leaning towards a barn. It was Mark actually that his common sense kicks in long before mine does, and he decided that this was probably a better fit for our operation, which has historically always been a cropping grain operation. And if anything happens to us and the kids don't want to take it over, we really did want to have it sold as a grain operation, not necessarily a livestock facility. So building this barn gives you that opportunity for someone that comes in that has no care at all about livestock. They're going to look at this building and go, oh, we could do this with it or this with it. So it's that resale factor. And I know we're farmers and we shouldn't talk about losing our farm, but it is just a fact of life, and we always build that scenario into any of our future plans because we just don't want to force this on our kids. And you still want to be able to sell your farm for its full potential. Garage doors, these are not cheap. And the thing with garage doors is outside the garage doors, you have to have yard. And really when we're building this barn, the yard costs and the excavation and all that was really what adds up to the cost of building a barn that you really do need to keep in mind when you're doing this stuff. So I do have this smaller door. I'm trying to remember what size that one was. This is a really nice door. We have had struggles with it. The very first year we built the barn, a few weeks after we got it up, it fell off the track. And I was standing right there, and Monty was standing right there. So needless to say, there were a couple scaredy cats standing here when that sucker went down. Which brings us to our ventilation. And we do have a pretty large, full-size curtain that really goes right down to the cement curb. That is part of the barn structure. As you can see, the purlins, or the rafters, I guess, come right down and they're attached to the cement curb. That also goes right into the floor and actually a couple feet right into the ground. So the floor is rebarred right into this footing here. So that's kind of the structure of this building. And then these curtains, they are run automatic by that thing when it works, which apparently doesn't like to work when I'm away. And what we have with this, we have a couple sensors in the middle of the barn. One is right there and one is in the middle a little further back. So it's kind of in two zones, and then they mix the zones together to get an average temperature of the barn. And then the curtains are run by that temperature. So I have a set point, and if the temperature goes above that set point, the curtains will call to drop. If the temperature goes below the set point, then the curtains will raise and shut up to conserve heat. So that's a pretty simple design. And there's also a rain sensor on this, so if it's raining, in theory, these are supposed to go up, but we've been really having issues with that rain sensor, so one more thing on the list. The last real piece of the puzzle in a barn, or setting up a barn, is a handling system. And I mean, I'm sorry if you guys have been with me for a long time, you'll know that I say the same thing every time. If you're designing a new barn, make sure this is part of your design before you start. We knew we were going to kind of put it in this corner. Wasn't sure on layout. It took me really a good year and a half to really decide how I was going to set this up. It's working really well now how I have it. And again, I got this whole system from Marweld through my friends at Brussels Agri-Service. I'll put like I said before, I'll put all their links in the description below if you're looking for equipment. If you are in Ontario, I don't know if they ship internationally, but I can definitely send you links. It's very, very simple. This part is just a deflector, so when I'm sorting, they can go left, right, or straight through with this terrible name, but it's called a Gilson gate. They can go straight through there. This right here is called a run or a chase. Lots of terms for this, but basically an alleyway where they can come in. I do a lot of my handling right in here. They're starting to awake, so sorry, it's going to get loud here. But what I find with sheep, when I'm handling them in this system, sheep like to feel that they're not isolated. They like to know that their friends are undergoing what they're undergoing. So I find they flow a little bit better if there's one in front of them and one behind them. I always make a little joke that on this front gate, I'd love to put a real life, really good drawing of a sheep's back end right here, so they always think there's a sheep to go run in towards. So maybe one of you, if you're a designer or an artist, if you want to paint me a picture that I can put here on the store so they think it's a sheep's arse, that would be great. Anyway, so this is the handling system. Down there's the crowding tub. I'll show you that. All right, so here's the crowding tub. This is kind of a newer design. The one across the road that I have in the old barn, you have to pull this back. So if you have sheep right here, it kind of sucks because you're actually forcing them to go backwards when they're already like, no, I want to follow Joe who went before me and you locked me out. So with this one, it's nice because it's got some rollers, so I can roll the door behind those sheep and sneak around them and say, hey, Boo, go follow Joe. And away they go. Well, in theory. Now this is kind of the behavioral part when you're thinking about handling system. Always don't fight the behavior of a sheep, their natural instinct to do something. Have it work with you when you're handling your animals, and that goes with the setup of your system. So that's called, so the way that is in an arch, because they say when a sheep is moving, they're always really trying to escape you. For them, it's not fight or flight, it's flight every single time. They're not gonna fight you, they wanna get the hell away from you. What this system is designed to do is make them think they're coming in and then going back out. It's kind of, it feels like they're looping back. And a sheep likes to feel like, if you even watch them, even when I'm moving them, a lot of the time they try to get around me. You know, what I was taught in my Master Shepherd's program, and it was like the one thing that I remembered that really clicked with me, because I really fought handling sheep. Like I always treated them like cows, and cows would just push. Like you could push cows as a herd. And with sheep, I'm like, what is going on? Why won't they move? But they're always trying to get around me. And my friend Anita, who was teaching that course, I just remember, she's like, don't ever fight a sheep's natural instinct. Always use it to your advantage and work with it. And that has stuck with me to today. So I'm sharing that with you guys. If you're building a handling system, really research the behavior of a sheep and how they want to behave and how they act and move, and use it for you. So thank you, Anita O'Brien, for helping me realize that way back when, because I've never forgot that, and it really did truly change how I looked at sheep and moving them. And guys, if you're going to be in the business of sheep farming, you know, pretty intentionally, you're going to be handling sheep a lot. So do take the time, don't take it for granted, take the time and build a really good one. The other thing that we did on our farm, because we're using ag bags to store all our feed, we get our custom guy Bob. He comes and I run the bagger, he brings the bagger for us, and we do haylage, which is just cut and preserved hay, chopped hay, and we do corn silage, which is the same, only with a whole stalk of corn. So that works really, really well with us. We can grow quite a bit of feed on a smaller amount of acreage than if we had these lambs and ewes out to pasture. So that's why we do store our feed and feed it to them instead of having them come out to eat it. The one thing we did after about a year was pour this asphalt pad, which has turned out to be amazing and just really nice. And believe it or not, it does make feeding time a lot more efficient. And I think what happens is every time you hit a little pothole, feed drops out of the bucket, and then you hit it again and you hit it again, and I think it just slows down your time because you're just always slowing down for bumps. Keeping this pad nice and clean where you're driving is just, it makes a huge difference on feed time. I know it sounds weird, but I truly feel like that's it's true. And then you waste a heck of a lot less feed because you're not hitting those bumps. So it's been a good investment. We went with the asphalt. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than a great big concrete pad that would have cost us an arm and a leg to do that. The one thing we are hoping to maybe do, I don't know this year, because who knows what this year's going to bring now that we're dealing with what we're dealing with. My problem is manure storage, and I am dying for some manure storage, just for flexibility and being able to keep these sheep clean all the time in the barn. What we were maybe hoping to do is extend this pad all the way back to where the feed bag starts, so square it off with the barn, go back further, and have that manure pile back. I hate having it right beside the door, because you can see rain kind of builds up, and then I'm driving through that. Now, I'm not grabbing it at all with my bucket, but it's coming in on my tires, and I just don't really want that inside the barn, even though it's just inside the door. I just want to keep all that contamination out. So for the most part, it's dry, but every once in a while you get a little melt, or you get a big rain, and it'll just kind of sit there. There's a little bit of a divot. But for the most part, the slope goes the right way, and I'm pretty happy with where all the water falls. But it's just one of those things you do have to keep grade in mind all the time when you're doing these big builds. This is just our machine shed. So all Mark's equipment for grain farming. We have the back shed is just cold storage. So that's where a lot of his equipment sits. The front is heated. That's where he does all his maintenance in the front part. This is an old machine shed that Mark's dad had built, or even Grandpa maybe. And it's just, again, just a drive-through shed. We would love to actually change this a bit and put 2 doors in, or one great big door, so we can drive through better. Right now we always have to like put wagons to the side and unhook, and it's a bit of a challenge. What we are finding as we, grow in our business, or not even really grow, but just accumulate more equipment, especially with the introduction of the sheep, we're running out of storage. So we've got some equipment here, we've got some equipment down the road at his dad's, and some equipment down at his brother's. So it's just, I feel like we have stuff everywhere. It would be a dream to build one more shop or renovate this one a little bit. We're not sure what to do, but we would like to have more equipment at home. This is the grain elevator. A lot of money has gone into this in the last few years. We built the leg. The leg got put up last January. The bins got put up a couple years ago. So that's another thing we're looking at this year as to what to do. Do we put up more storage? We do like to market our own grain through the year instead of relying on shipping it to town at harvest. We do like to keep it on farm and take advantage of marketing on our own. This is our old natural gas dryer, so if anyone's interested in a dryer, we need to sell that this year. We should have sold it last year. We do have a new dryer back there that we put in last year, and it works great. It's called the Top Dry. You can check out Mark's channel for all the information on the grain elevator system. It's been an amazing addition to our life at harvest, for sure. So this is home sweet home. House, garage, office, and then that's the drive shed. Grain elevator's over there. Barn is way at the back. So you know how I talked about 2020 being some building projects that we'd hopefully like to do. The one thing that gets really neglected is our 100-year-plus old house that is a beautiful old red brick house that needs a lot of work, and we've really neglected it. We've been in this house since 2002. I was pregnant with Jess, and very pregnant with Jess. I did a lot of moving when I was very pregnant with Jess. The only thing we've really done, I've done a lot of painting, we've done some carpet, we redid our bathroom, and we put on a new steel roof because our roof was awful. Mark's parents did a lot of work to this house about 10 years before we moved in, so it didn't need a lot, but now we've just waited so long that, the porch needs work. It's got some of our kitchen reno still on the porch. So we started renovating our kitchen. We're trying to do it ourselves, which that's always great for a marriage. We started that 3 Christmases ago. I think we've gone through 3 Christmases when we first started destructing things. We've got a partial kitchen done, and I'm hoping through this quarantine, perhaps I can convince Mark to get motivated to start at it again. Here's the drive shed that I was talking about. So this is really, really old. This is the only shed the guys had to work on before we built the new one in 2000, I believe. So yeah, it was dirt. It's just dirt floor. You just drive through. But this is what I mean about trying to fit stuff on this side. Because this stuff's all closed in on both ends, it's really, really hard. We'd like to kind of break this out and make another door, and then at least you could drive everything straight through and get rid of these little trashy corners where stuff always seems to pile up. But yeah, just a nice old drive shed. It's still nice to bring the gravity wagons here under cover, especially when they're full of grain. You get kicked out of the field, as perhaps is what happened there. Here is the big machine shed of Mark's. The shop is in the front, machine shed at the back, and this was built in, I believe, 2000. I'm pretty sure it was built the same year as one of the chicken barns that I worked in. So this is the year that I was pregnant and had Jack. It was 2000. Hey Google, stop. Oh, hi. What are you doing? Everybody's getting to see Jess every day. What are you doing? Tell the people.
Detailing the interior of this tractor.
For your daddy. Is this what we call homeschooling?
It's called procrastination. Thumbnail.
Oh, it's a good thing you're cute. At least you had goat there. So yes, Jess got bored this morning. This was our homeschooling project.
Arts and crafts. They recommended arts
It's pretty.
and crafts.
You gotta be pretty.
It's pretty good, eh?
Pretty close.
It looks pretty good.
Look pretty.
Even my ears are like perfectly lined up. I think those sheets the best.
Yeah, goat looks good. I
That
think
looks really
goat
good.
should stay.
I like the sheet. It should. Whatever.
All right, I'm giving a tour of the shop. So this is the shop. This is where Mark is. He's probably done a video on this already, but he's just been working on the seed drill, getting it ready for spring. The only thing we really did with this shop was build a mezzanine up there for just some extra storage. Mark and I did some marriage counseling up there last year as we cleaned it for the first time in probably ever. This room is heated, which is nice. It's in-floor heat. Kinsey's our tour guide, apparently. So here is the machine shed part. This is where we park as much as we can. The combine's in here. The loader, the one 8295, is in here with the planter and the Alari cart. So he's just got, usually what he puts here are the things that we're gonna use first. The combine's only here because it was getting serviced at our neighbors down the road, so he's just nicely brought it back late last week. So we're just parked it here for now until we can get it. Mark likes to wait for the roads to be pretty dried off to drive it down the road because he doesn't want to make stuff dirty. And again, we built some racks here just to get stuff up off the ground, a little more storage space. So for those that watch these videos and have seen me do tours before, this is the part where it might be a bit new. So changes for 2020. Again, I'm not sure if we can do it. We had some grand illusions of a few big projects, one of them being equipment, so I'll talk about that a little bit more in the equipment part of this video. For the barn actual structure of the barn, I don't want to change anything. I'm happy with the barn. The chimneys have to get finished. That'll be the big one for 2020. And like what I said outside, I really want to get that asphalt maybe extended further back. And even if we could look at some sort of a manure handling storage area.